Chris Savold alongside John Schooner, and this is the Fantasy Football Formula, streaming live from the Potomac School. Now, John, it's been a great week. At least for me, it was a great week. I went 4-1 in my fantasy leagues. My two primary leagues, I won both games. I even survived a Todd Gurley mishap. I needed 4 points from Todd Gurley, and he had, 4.4? So it was a great week for me. How about you?
In my primary league, League of Destiny, I took the loss, but my team performed fairly well. We put up over 95 points. We did all right. Could have done better. I unfortunately had Melvin Gordon, Will Fuller, and Isaiah Crowell on my bench who scored touchdowns. But my team performed fairly well. I got a big week out of Julius Thomas, obviously, which I didn't expect. Doug Baldwin, continuing to prove that he is a valuable fantasy asset. The only issue that I saw with my team was Eddie Lacy did not live up to standards, but I was really proud of how LaShawn McCoy performed, considering he carried the entire Bills' workload aside from 2 touches.
Now, John, in my primary league, League of Destiny as well, my team had Derek Carr, Lamar Miller, Latavius Murray, A.J. Green, Amari Cooper, Deshaun Jackson, Zach Ertz, and then kickers and defense. I had Brandon Cooks and DeMarco Murray on my bench, as well as Rashad Jennings, so needless to say, I'm pretty excited about the season to come. Player analysis. It was a pretty crazy week. We had really no running backs perform that well. We had 2 running backs run for over 100 yards, and one of them didn't even average over 100 yards per carry. I think that's worrisome. Over 4 yards per carry, excuse me. I think that's pretty worrisome, especially as an owner of Lamar Miller, but I have no worries about Lamar Miller.
I think we saw a lot of good running backs come up against tough defenses. So C.J. Anderson came up against tough Panthers defense, which was difficult, but he came through. But a lot of the really talented running backs in the league came up against tough matchups. And I think as the season progresses, I think we're going to see an increase in points from running backs. Obviously, I don't think this is going to carry out through the whole season because at this rate, it's not looking good for running backs. Those who took wide receivers in the first round are going to look really lucky.
Yeah, and I think seeing players like C.J. Anderson, Melvin Gordon excel, that's very exciting for me. Both of those guys, I had C.J. Anderson as my number 11 RB and Melvin Gordon as my number 21 RB going into the season, both of which I'm pretty sure my C.J. Anderson rank was probably one of the highest among fantasy experts. Melvin Gordon was just higher than average. I'm very proud of myself for that.
I have Melvin Gordon in the top 20 for week 1, C.J. Anderson number 16, but obviously he's going to be moving up. I really like C.J. Anderson going into this year just because I think last year was either due to injury or just a fluke. He's a really talented running back. He's a true 3-down workhorse, I think, in this league. Devontae Booker fumbled for his NFL carry. He could still become an interesting handcuff later in the year, but I think C.J. Anderson is looking really good to start the season. And so is Melvin Gordon, obviously with his 2 touchdowns.
And then also Brandon Cooks had 27 points. Really, really played well with pairing Drew Brees against a pretty decent secondary in Oakland with Carl Joseph, Sean Smith, and David Amerson. Amerson excelled last year after being cut by Scott McCloughan and the Redskins. He's still a former second-round pick, and we don't know whether last year was a fluke. I'm pretty excited having Cooks on my team. I think he fell to me in the 4th round of the draft, which I was not expecting at all. I'm excited though.
I think there's worlds of possibility with Brandon Cooks. I think last year I was still unsure about Brandon Cooks, but he has solidified himself as Drew Brees' favorite target. And I think Willie Snead was a fluke this week. I don't think he's going to be that successful for the rest of the season. I think Brandon Cooks, he's not going to score 27 points every week. But I think Brandon Cooks could easily see loads and loads of targets per game. Because that's what just Drew Brees, we've seen him. When he finds someone he likes, he exploits them. And he finds a way to get them the football no matter what. We saw it with Jimmy Graham. We're going to see it with Brandon Cooks this year. I like him going forward.
Yeah, and then we didn't really see an impact from any rookie wide receivers aside from one guy who I really didn't like coming into the NFL, and that is my man Will Fuller out of Notre Dame. Shout out to Jack Bailey. Will Fuller played very, very well. And it pains me to admit that. And, John, I'll give you your moment in a second. I don't think Houston's offense can support both DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, and as well as Lamar Miller. I think that Fuller, maybe he takes DeAndre Hopkins' job. Certainly that's an overreaction, but I think
the thing that we have to worry about as fantasy owners, and I'm pretty happy about it considering Will Fuller is on my team, but I think the thing that we have to worry about is kind of the thing that a lot of people who have Julio Jones are worrying about this week. Leonard Hankerson was taking, Mohamed Sanu was taking a lot of his looks, and in an offense like that, where there's just this void created by DeAndre Hopkins that is so difficult to fill. Nobody, even Lamar Miller in that offense, he's obviously different as a running back. DeAndre Hopkins is the focal point of that offense, as was proved last year. Brock Osweiler looked to him a lot, but DeAndre Hopkins is getting the best that any team can throw at him, week in and week out, and it's going to be a really tough season for him. He did find the end zone this week, but I don't think you can count on that. Will Fuller, to me, is going to take on a big role, because Will Fuller is going to be the guy who isn't going to be in double coverage, who is not going to be taking on these really difficult matchups, because they're going to leave the scraps to Will Fuller.
Yeah, I think every year you have a wide receiver who excels with a terrible quarterback. 2 years ago, it was Mike Evans with Josh McCown in Tampa Bay. Last year, it was DeAndre Hopkins with a ton of different terrible quarterbacks in Houston. And just because they get maybe statistically better quarterback or a more heralded quarterback the next year doesn't mean their stats are going to go up. Hopkins, I think that might be the case. Osweiler's just a different style QB as Hoyer. It wouldn't surprise me if he finished outside the top 10.
I completely agree, and I don't think it's any knock against DeAndre Hopkins. I see DeAndre Hopkins as a top 5, maybe even top 3 talent-wise wide receiver in the NFL. Last year, I think we saw it multiple occasions. Brian Hoyer just tossed the ball up and hoped DeAndre Hopkins would come down with it. That's not really Brock Osweiler's style that we saw, especially in that Patriots game last year, which was a huge win for the Broncos. I think we're going to see a lot of carries for Lamar Miller. 28 is not even going to be the most he's going to see this season. Lamar Miller is going to get a lot of the ball, and I think Will Fuller is going to get a lot of the ball too. It's going to be hard to get DeAndre Hopkins 10 targets a game because I think defenses are going to focus in on him.
Yeah, I had A.J. Green as my 4 wide receiver, Hopkins as my 5. Moving forward, I might drop down, flip. Would you say I had Cooper extremely high going into the season? I have him as my number 9 wide receiver, ahead of the likes of Des Bryant. After Cooper's Week 1 performance, I don't think I would hesitate to flip him with Jordy Nelson. What are your thoughts about that?
I really liked what I saw from Jordy Nelson this week, and obviously Des Bryant, complete choke. I had him at number 4 with Tony Romo. Without Tony Romo, I can see Des Bryant as a wide receiver 2. I don't see him as a wide receiver 1. I see him as a flex wide receiver 2. I don't even know with him. Dak Prescott just didn't run the offense that well. That offense just looked completely flat all game, and Green Bay's offense looked like it was back. I think Eddie Lacy owners, including myself, he's going to produce like he did that warned himself as a first-round pick last year. Eddie Lacy's going to produce like he did last year because Jordy Nelson, and I think Randall Cobb as well, that offense is going to be back in the form it was 2 years ago. I see a lot of good coming out of the Green Bay offense.
Yeah, Jordy Nelson, 9 targets for 6 receptions, 32 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown really saved him. But you can see that Rodgers went to him on 3rd, 2nd down, 2nd and long, because he trusted Nelson. And obviously chemistry is something that isn't easily found between a quarterback and a wide receiver. With that said, I think Des Bryant, getting rid of him, not owning him would be the most ideal option, because the issue with, though Bryant, I might have him 23rd in my ranks, I would feel the need to play Bryant just because he's Des Bryant. It's the same thing with Devonta Freeman. Though like Freeman I had at my number 9 RB, at this point he's probably 12. I would still play him next week.
I could even have him lower.
And I just think it's tough to bench the guy you spent a first-round pick on. It's like some Cam Newton owners benched him against when he was playing Denver, but then everyone was like, well, you can't bench a quarterback if he's playing a top 5 defense. You draft him in the top 3 rounds. That means you play him every single week. That's what he's worth to your team. I mean, week 1 bust put guys in tough positions. Another week 1 bust, Adrian Peterson. Peterson, I have thought the past 3 years has been overrated. He really hasn't played that well. I mean, this week he had how many points? 2 points?
He had 19 for, I think, like 39 or something. Adrian Peterson owners, I hate to say it, but it's time to panic on Adrian Peterson.
I wouldn't go that far.
I don't think you have to panic, but I think it's gonna be rough unless Sam Bradford can somehow do something to get their passing game going, because what we saw with Adrian Peterson last week was how teams should play Adrian Peterson in an offense that can't pass the ball. With no Teddy Bridgewater, that's how teams should play Adrian Peterson. Just stack the line. You know that they're not going to be able to move the ball through the air. And I think part of it is Adrian Peterson is getting up there in age, but I just think it's going to be a tough one for Adrian Peterson. I think if you could sell high on him, I would try. Just, if you could sell his name, I would still do it right now.
Peterson, over the past 3 years, has averaged 4.5, 3.6, and 4.5 yards per carry. 2 of those 3 are still very good, but they are also the second lowest of his career. They all fall in the bottom 4 years of his career. He hasn't rushed for over 1,600 yards, which, I mean, you're not expecting him to do that, but I think every year they talk about this is the year Peterson slows down. And Peterson's not one to get off to fast starts. I think this is the year Peterson slows down.
I agree. I think this is the year Peterson slows down.
You know, bold prediction, I predict Adrian Peterson finishes outside the top 10 running backs.
I completely agree with you. I think Adrian Peterson, I think he'll finish top 20, because I think there's still touchdown production coming. I think Adrian Peterson is still going to see, obviously, good workload. But Dynasty leagues get Jerick McKinnon. I think that guy's got a bright future in the NFL. And Adrian Peterson, I think Adrian Peterson could still be a valuable fantasy starter, but I don't think Adrian Peterson is the guy who you want as your first-round pick this year.
Yeah, and then a couple guys we're both feeling uneasy about. John, what are your thoughts on the Chiefs' backfield?
I worry about the Chiefs' backfield because Jamal Charles, as he used to be, 20 carries a game, 5 catches a game, what he used to produce, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think he's going to get goal line carries. I could still see him getting over 15 carries a game. I could see that. But I think Spencer Ware is going to be more than a change of pace back. He's going to get legitimate looks, and I think I could easily see Andy Reid going to him in the red zone instead of Jamal Charles.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough situation. I really didn't like Charles going into this year. I had him as my number 15 running back in the tier of Latavius Murray, Jeremy Hill, Matt Forte. I don't like having backfields like that. And then, I mean, you also have another backfield, the Lions backfield, which is 2 guys really excelled who haven't excelled together in the same offense before. Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah both had over 15 points. And, I mean, Abdullah had 18. He averaged a pretty decent yards per carry with around 5. And then Riddick, on the other hand, Riddick posted 22 points. I mean, those are 2 of your top 5 or top 10 probably running back statistics from week 1. I think you don't want to be owning the Lions, but if you do own him, that was probably the best you have seen.
I think it's something that you want to monitor, but I think the issue is that you're not going to get consistency out of it. But I do like what they have there. I think if you're a football fan, if you're not a fantasy owner, I think you like what you see from the Lions backfield because they're taking maybe outside the box approaches, and it's succeeding for them, which is good because they just really haven't been able to find any running game in the recent future.
Interesting statistic here. The two of the top four, the two leading receivers on the Lions were Marvin Jones, and then right behind him were Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah. That's worrisome for Golden Tate owners. That's worrisome for Eric Ebron owners.
I think he's in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I would tend to agree with that. Now, John, Ezekiel Elliott is someone I was very high on coming out of college. He's my running back, just ahead of Devontae Booker out of Utah, who I still love. Elliott averaged 2.5 yards per carry, saved his week with a touchdown. What are your thoughts on him?
I think don't worry about Ezekiel Elliott. I think Ezekiel is going to be a top 10 running back this year. He's going to see a lot of volume. Ezekiel Elliott, in my mind, is going to be all right. He's getting volume. He is just his NFL debut. He's just still figuring out what he's going to do in real games. The thing I looked at was the fact that he got 20 carries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the fact that he got into the end zone. I think that can be overvalued week one touchdowns, but I think the fact that Ezekiel Elliott got 20 carries and was on the field a lot, and they were relying on him early and often. I really like what happened with Ezekiel Elliott this week. I wouldn't worry Ezekiel Elliott owners.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Elliott is very, very talented. The Giants should spend like $200 million on their defense. It's not the end of the world. And next week they'll be playing the Redskins run defense, which was obliterated by D'Angelo Williams.
D'Angelo Williams, I think D'Angelo Williams is doing even more than we could have expected in the role that he's in with the Steelers. If a running back goes down somewhere else, I think some teams should probably look to grab him because when the Steelers get Le'Veon Bell back, I don't know what you're going to do with D'Angelo Williams because you have a legitimate top 10 running back. His potential is ridiculous right now. And it might just be the Steelers scheme that he likes, but D'Angelo Williams is performing admirably in his position right now.
Yeah, the waiver ads, for me, I had Robert Kelly, Redskins backup, Eli Rogers, who saw 9 targets, I think, against the Redskins defense. Played really well. I think he's going to end up as a number 2 wide receiver this year in Pittsburgh. And then also Mike Wallace, who saw targets. For me, the most important thing week 1 is targets, or how are they utilized in their respective offense. Touchdowns, who cares? Melvin Gordon had 2 touchdowns, but then also Danny Woodhead he had the most carries in the second half, and that's worrisome for Melvin Gordon owners.
I think what we saw with Melvin Gordon this week is what we're going to see with the Chargers this year. Melvin Gordon is your grind-it-out, pound the opposing defense running back. They're going to feed Melvin Gordon when they're in the lead and early in the game. I think Melvin Gordon is still a more startable option because he's your ground-and-pound, 20-carry touchdown guy. But especially without Keenan Allen, Danny Woodhead is going to become really important because Danny Woodhead's your losing in the game, trying to get back in, trying to make a big play type of back. I think they both warrant flex. They're both startable at the flex. Melvin Gordon, I think, could be an RB2 right now. He has high RB2 upside, if you ask me, but Danny Woodhead will be an easy flex, could be a startable RB2 by the end of the year. I like both of them. I think you keep both of them and you flex them.
John, what are your thoughts on Terrell Williams?
I think the biggest benefactor from Keenan Allen getting hurt was Danny Woodhead. But I think people are going to jump to conclusions about Travis Benjamin, who's a big play guy who just is not consistent. And I think Terrell Williams is more like Keenan Allen than Travis Benjamin can be. I think he's going to step into the Keenan Allen role, but Antonio Gates is another guy you want to look at who's going to really go up in value this week. Terrell Williams, I think, is someone you should add because I think he could be very interesting, but he might just be someone who who will be a number 2 receiver who might get more consistent volume. Travis Benjamin is really just a deep threat. I think Danny Woodhead and Antonio Gates are the biggest benefactors of the injury to Keenan Allen.
Yeah, AJ Green, John, for over-unders. Is he over or under Des Bryant for you?
Over.
DeAndre Hopkins?
Over.
Julio Jones?
Under.
Yeah, same answers for me. CJ Anderson, LaShawn McCoy.
I'm taking LaShawn.
I'm taking Anderson. Want to make a bet?
I'll bet with you on that one.
From this point on, CJ Anderson will outscore LaShawn McCoy.
I see LaShawn McCoy will outscore CJ Anderson.
Bet on it. All right. Now, CJ Anderson, Eddie Lacy.
CJ Anderson.
I agree with that. CJ Anderson and Thomas Rawls. This is easy for me.
CJ Anderson.
I mean,
absolutely.
Anderson.
Thomas Rawls, I recently moved out of the top 20. I think he's in trouble with Kristen Michael. I can see complete committee for the rest of the season. CJ Anderson, I have in the top 10 with LaShawn McCoy. I think those are both guys who you really like. I'm worried about the Seahawks backfield. I like the Seahawks passing game going forward.
Yeah, Melvin Gordon is going to be the base player. Do you like Melvin Gordon or Matt Jones more?
Melvin Gordon.
Same here. Melvin Gordon, DeMarco Murray.
Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon, Ryan Matthews.
Melvin Gordon.
Pretty high on him. I think it's very close for Matthews.
I agree with that one. I think that one's really close. I could go either way.
I'm going to say Murray and Matthews are above Gordon.
As of right now, I would take Murray over Gordon, but I think in 3 weeks, you want Gordon instead of Murray.
I just think San Diego's backfield is more deceiving than it looks. Now, it's been a rough week as a Redskins fan, I'll tell you that much. I mean, I went into this season, we have a quarterback, finally, after waiting 3 years with RG3, and RG3, respect to you, man, but God, you really put our team through hell. I mean, we have a Matt Jones, running back with all his potential, great receiving core, new offensive line, the offensive line from last year that excelled, plus getting back the left guard we missed. Then you've Josh Norman, Brashad Breeland. What's better than that? Apparently, the Steelers. We played so bad. It was horrendous. It was so hard to watch. I mean, I am a die-hard Redskins fan, and that was bad. Now, I think that's not an indication of our team, like, completely. I think Breeland played absolutely terribly, but
I think with a more manageable assignment, I think Brashad Breeland's going to be all right.
And, I mean, he's a good cornerback. He just really, really, really struggled. And, I mean,
and
Josh Norman
struggle against Antonio Brown.
All of you people on Facebook who keep getting pissed off about Josh Norman for no reason, I mean, look, the guy's a good corner. Give him respect. Ever since he signed that contract, he's just been hated on constantly for absolutely no reason. Carolina cutted him because he wanted money. Do you know why he probably wanted money? Because he was the best cornerback in the NFL last year, and he was a good cornerback the past 2 years, or the year before that. You have to pay the man. I mean, you're expecting a guy who just came off a career year to just sign a short-term deal for not that much, or a long-term deal for not that much. Who in their right mind would do that?
I think if you're...
And Carolina's the team that cut him. He didn't even ask to get cut by Carolina. He played well too. It's not like he played bad last night. He was targeted twice against Antonio Brown and had 2 pass deflections. How many guys can do that? Everyone was talking about, oh, Norman's going to get exposed by Antonio Brown. Guess what? He wasn't. Yeah, the Redskins defense was exposed, but Norman wasn't. Also, shout out to my man Will Compton. He was the highest scoring player on the Redskins team, 87.5. How many tackles did he have, John?
I don't know, but he did. He was one of the lone bright spots on the defense. I will agree with you on that.
He just 13 tackles. I mean, what's better than that? You gotta love Will Compton. He's a hustle freak. He just was named team captain. God, I love Will Compton. Chris Baker also played well. Deshaun Jackson really played well. I still think Deshaun Jackson is a top. If I had to choose 10 wide receivers to have on my team, Deshaun Jackson would most definitely be one of them. And he's not one of the 10 best wide receivers, but no matter what situation he's in, he excels. It doesn't matter if Michael Vick's his quarterback, Donovan McNabb's his quarterback, RG3, Colt McCoy, Kirk Cousins, he excels. Last game, Kirk
He's
Cousins
a
played
playmaker.
terribly. He had a 45 overall rating on Pro Football Focus. Jackson had 90 yards. He can make plays, period. You want guys that can make plays on your team. Des Bryant, Deshaun Jackson, I honestly think I might take Deshaun Jackson at this point. Des Bryant has been absolute crap the past 2 years. Deshaun Jackson, though he's been injured, Des Bryant's been injured more. Deshaun Jackson has played better. And it's going to take people a while to understand that, but Deshaun Jackson is a very, very good NFL wide receiver. And by the way, Will Compton, for linebackers, number 2 linebacker according to Pro Football Focus in Week 1. What a beast.
I think the thing to remember about the Redskins is that they're playing the NFC East. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers are a really good team. That's not excusing the fact that the Redskins didn't play well. They just didn't play well. They did not play how they can. I think they have potential. But no NFC East team impressed me this week. None of them. And the Steelers played great game offensively. They held the ball. They always converted their chances. I think it was just a tough matchup for them, and they just didn't step up to the challenge. That's the problem with what happened with them this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still confident the Redskins are going to finish at least second in the division. I was very, very disappointed. Jordan Reed played pretty well. He didn't play great. He played well. It annoys me when people freak out after Week 1, and I know I just did that, but, I mean, gotta relax. I mean, what are your thoughts, John?
I think next week is going to be a lot better for Redskins
This
fans.
team relies on its running game. With Alfred Morris, we were fine.
They need a running game.
We need a running game.
That's the key.
I think Robert Kelly should get the start against Dallas. Give Matt Jones one more week. If he doesn't perform, Robert Kelly. Robert Kelly is the next coming of Alfred Morris. And with that, I tell you, good day and good night. Chris Savold with John Schooner. What podcast is this, John?
Fantasy Football Formula.
This is the Fantasy Football Formula. And I have one thing to tell you.
See ya.